The way to approach your business partners in this day and age is what problem are you trying to solve so we can figure out the right technology to help you solve it? How do we help the company make money? How do we help the company save money? These are the conversations that technology leaders need to have instead of we need X, KPI, Y KPI. The business doesn't understand it nor care about it. And that's why I think you have this perpetual silo, and that's critical in a time where we need to come together. AI is absolutely not a technology capability. It's technology driven, and technology is creates it, but AI in an organization is absolutely a business IT partnership.
Welcome to Pioneers, the show where we explore the intersection between humanity and AI. I'm your host, Ankur Patel. Over the last 10 years, I've built 3 AI startups, written 2 books about the subject, and I run a weekly AI newsletter. I also regularly teach and speak about the topic at conferences. This technology has grown faster than I think any of us could have imagined, and it's making us ask really important questions, such as how ethical is AI? What will this technology look like in a few years, let alone a few months? And most importantly, does it have the power to truly change the world? And what does it mean for you? On this show, I'll be interviewing the founders, operators, and pioneers that are introducing AI into their companies and industries. We'll be asking them the really heavy-hitting questions that make them dig deep into the core of what we do. And without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Ankur Patel, and today my guest is Tonjia Coverdale, Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer for Operations and Technology at Associated Bank. Tanja, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
For the benefit of our audience, do you mind just giving us a little bit of background on you as well as what you're doing today?
Sure. Thanks for asking. So, Ankar, it's really funny when I think about it. This year, I'm celebrating 28 years in the field of technology. And I feel so fortunate to have had a career with so much longevity and experiences and adventures, as I like to call them, throughout. So I started out as a technical path, just like most of people in technology. I started out as a developer, and I've winded my way through every job function really in technology. So I've been an architect. I've done some testing. I've done some QA. I've done some business analysis. So sort of every area data. And so on a technology side, I have gone from being a developer all the way up to a CIO and a CEO. And now I'm a chief strategy officer at a bank. And I would say parallel to that, I have an academic career also in technology, which weaves in and out, and where I have started out as an adjunct professor and went all the way up to a CIO at a university. So I've seen technology from so many areas and different job families, different industries, different size companies. So I've gone from small startups to Fortune 50, many different parts of the United States, international. So I'm very, very excited to have this perspective that leads into my role as a chief strategy officer at Associated Bank. So in my current role, what I do is I partner closely with the CIO and my peers who are leading all of the technology functions. So you think you're a chief information strategy officer, a chief data officer, all of my peers. And I'm working with them to help move their areas forward strategically. So we're looking at how do we take existing technologies, upcoming technologies, weave it all in, and not really just looking at the technology, but also the holistic components that you would need: your people, your process, your platform, and your purpose, and moving things forward. So I think all the experiences that I've had have definitely given me insight into being able to look at technology in a multidimensional way and just be able to help deliver on strategy. So it's super fun.
And when you think about all the technologies that have come about over even the last 10 years, right? So big data, analytics, machine learning of all sorts and forms, and then more recently, generative AI. And generative AI, you could double click into that to go into co-pilots and chatbots and now AI agents and agentic AI. I'm just curious, what is the temperature in the room around
getting up to speed on all of these inflection points, and more importantly, the adoption, right? Because I think you hear a lot about this is so cool and fancy, but I'm very curious how much of it is actually being adopted and delivering real value versus what is still kind of more people are experimenting, but they haven't quite landed yet in production.
I think the temperature in the room is everybody's really excited. I mean, this is something once in a lifetime that can come and just revolutionize the way we work, the way we produce, the way we interact, the way we do everything. So I think you're seeing across the board, whether you're talking to business partners or technology proper, you're seeing this great excitement for AI. You're also seeing, though, a little bit of confusion of where to start, how to start. Everybody knows that we need to start, but where and how, I think you're seeing a lot of challenge there. And then for those who have gotten started, it's like, what is the best sets of use cases that we should use? We have some that have gone the more conservative route and said, we're going to adopt AI, but we're not going to do this for customer facing because we still have hallucinations and some of the things that we're concerned about, especially in the baking industry. We're heavily regulated. And so we even have our regulators who haven't really made their sort of regulatory decisions on exactly how we should use it. So we're erring on the side of being more conservative. So you're seeing more productivity based AI, internally efficiency based AI. But then you have some organizations, and these are usually the larger organizations that are saying, we are ready to take the risk to bring this to our clients, to our customers, and have external facing AI. Those are much less right now, but I think we'll start to see that pendulum swing that way.
I do wonder if the operational efficiency and productivity lens is too short-sighted and myopic. And the reason why I say that is, yes, that's like the low-hanging fruit. You go and introduce software to reduce expense and make people more productive. Like that all checks out and makes sense. But I think the far bigger value add is going to be around compressing the time it takes to make decisions, right? To get like a final great outcome for the customer. So it improves the product experience and customer experience. Yes, it's internal enablement, but ultimately the output or outcome is that customers are materially better off. They not only do they desire better experiences, but they will eventually expect better experiences because like they've gotten accustomed to faster turnaround times, faster decisions, faster outputs, everything kind of just a keystroke away. So I'm wondering if like what we should be really doing is trying to figure out how do we think about this from a revenue enablement, customer experience improvement lens versus just like a cost reduction play.
I totally agree with you. And I think I'm hopeful that the short sightedness that you mentioned is just an opportunity for organizations to get used to how it works. And then I hope that we'll see a rapid acceleration on this curve to say, okay, we used it in a small confined capacity just to get our capabilities settled. And now we're ready to leap into where we're doing more customer interactions and really moving things forward. I think that's where the biggest opportunities are. And my prediction is that once those first movers are starting to go on those experiential use cases, you're going to have the ones who are lagging behind. They're going to be difficult to catch up because the experiences that people are going to gain, they're not going to want to go back to basic, non AI powered experiences. This is going to become the new frontier for everyone to do. And so you're right. We're seeing more people using it. Like I call it like super powered RPA. This is kind of how they're using AI now. But until we can do this, Ankur, this is what I really want everyone to think about. When you're making a technology investment, the goal is ROI, right? You want to invest in something that's going to pay for itself at the very minimum. But if we're going to continue to invest in these internal efficiency, productivity based use cases, are we really getting the ROI that we need and desire to make AI worth it? So, I guess what I'm saying the short way is how can we start looking at AI in terms of value added AI? How can we evaluate AI and our AI investment beyond efficiency gains?
I think that's right. I think the ROI kind of framework is really important. And that will change over time as well. And I think that the initial impact from the adoption of this technology made it feel a little bit more modest. Not saying that it's always modest. I think some people are quite surprised by how much value they get, but they're thinking from just one or two lenses when in fact it could be many different kind of outcomes and outputs that they should measure and track against, right? So instead of just cost savings or hours saved or whatnot, it's okay. Well, what is the NPS score bump that you get from customers or employees, even, right? So, like in insurance, it's rife with processes and workflows that are frustrating for internal staff, and I think there's been a lot level of impatience, maybe even among employees, in doing like X type of workflow because it's just too painful, it's too administrative. They don't want to be spending their waking hours spending time doing X or Y, and I think that's where software really can come in. It takes the grunt work off of their plate, allows them to be more human, which is crazy. Like the introduction of AI is allowing people to be more like people because the stuff that they were doing was something that was pretty mundane and repetitive and laborious in all the ways that software should handle. And now all of a sudden they could just be, frankly, more of themselves, right? Spend more time with customers, handle more edge cases that require critical thinking and decision making. So I'm pretty basically excited for what type of other dimensions people start tracking ROI against, because I think that quickly expands beyond just the cost reduction or efficiency lens that a lot of companies use today.
So, Ankur, what just came to mind when you were talking is the claims space in insurance and how mundane those tasks are, but how important those people on the front lines are to the caller. So let's think about the LA wildfires right now. This is very current. You have so many people calling in their insurance companies to see, start the claims process. You want that person to be so present, so empathic, so human. These people are losing their homes, their life, their possessions. You don't want somebody to say, okay, hold on, let me look and see, let me look in your notes. What if AI can synthesize? Because I might call in and I get Tanja, and then next I call in and I get you, right? And that's just the nature of life. Okay, that's fine. But what if we had AI that can synthesize all those various conversations that gave a good synopsis to whoever the latest person is on the line talking to this homeowner. So that claims adjuster or that representative can focus on care. Think about what that does for your NPS.
That's right. That's exactly right. I think that's right. It frees up valuable time that these individuals need to carve out to spend more time delivering better customer experiences versus doing the administrative work. Because there's a lot of administrative work, right? They have to go and figure out what things need to be submitted. They have to check for those submissions that came through via email. They need to set it up and file a claims report and figure out like how much can be paid out. Is there any kind of uh, maybe fraud or anything like that that's present. So, like, if you spend a lot of time doing administrative work, which has to get done because you have to ultimately have the right payout, it is mind-bogglingly complex and laborious, and I think it takes away from the attention span these individuals have to spend quality, like empathetic time on the phone. So I think that's absolutely right. I think there is better use of time for these individuals, and so it brings me to another question, which is like the 2 years ago, and this is like an age-old thing, but especially 2 years ago when ChatGPT came out, there was this like mass hysteria around, oh, this is going to take away so many jobs, all these roles are going to disappear. I think that conversation's changing a little bit because I think people are realizing it's a little bit more task displacement versus like actual role or job displacement. But I'm curious what you're seeing with the work that you're doing, whether there is still a lot of fear, or maybe that fear is morphing into something else.
I think with the advent of technologies like co-pilots, for example, you're seeing a lot of the fear really disappear, which is exciting for me because I was always team, it's not going to take your job, it's going to make your job better. But then again, I'm on the AI side, so I guess I would say that. But why I say that is like, so for example, you have Microsoft Copilot and you have your regular Teams meeting, and instead of focusing on, and this is for any level of worker, right? Instead of focusing on taking notes, you can focus on the conversation and the richness of the interaction. And I think people are seeing that you're actually getting more from, for example, your Teams meeting than you would if you're turning around, taking notes, writing on a notepad, and it's making you a more effective worker in whatever you're doing. And this is not only C-suite, or this is impacting everyone throughout the organization. And so I think there's now an excitement, a renewed excitement for how can this help me? Now, what I think the challenge for organizations are is how do we have an AI literacy program that permeates our organization so that people are ready to embrace fully these tools so that it can help them be better versions of their worker selves.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's like, how do you pair people and technology together to get a really great outcome? So, um, I think maybe pulling on that thread a little bit. When you think about generative AI being introduced into organizations, and including thinking through what use cases get worked on, whether to build in house or with external vendors, in what capacity, like of a particular process or workflow AI is introduced, who leads that conversation? Is it the business? Is it IT? And then how much input do the actual workers, the people that get affected the most, right? They're like the people that are, closest to the technology day to day. How much of how much are they involved in the decision making process along the way?
It should absolutely be a coalition that includes people from both the business side and the technology side. It should not be a decision that's made by one or the other. The business side can bring in that perspective of this is what we need to do to meet our business goals. Here are our business goals. Here's how we can add value, whether it's monetary value, productivity value. Here's evaluation. Your IT partners bring to the table. Here's what our capabilities are to enable this for you. Here's what we're able to do. Here's how this fits in our current data architecture. Here's how it fits in our overall infrastructure. Here's the security. So now you need to have risk and security at the table. Absolutely, them as well. And in addition, you should have, I would think, a subset of people who this is going to impact. So that might change per use case. In order to have a more rich, even first of all, how the processes work that you're looking to replace. You're not going to know this if you are vice president of something or the CISO or the chief data officer. You're not going to know. You really need to bring in the people who are interacting day to day. Not only does that improve the operability of the new solution that you are prescribing, it also improves the user adoption because the people can see themselves in this solution and their voices are at the table. So I think it's a horizontal and a vertical coalition that you'll need to create a standing committee of people up top, but then also per use case, bring in those representatives.
What are some of the mistakes that are common causes of failure in adoption, right? So you're explaining like how it theoretically should work, and the coalition idea makes a lot of sense. You get all the different stakeholders who are involved around the room. But when adoption fails, what are some of the common reasons or mistakes that are made that lead to that failure?
So I have several. Firstly, is when a singular group is making the decisions, either business or IT. So I'll take the business side. CEO says we have to have AI, get AI at all costs, just get it for us, and they buy it and they implement it and they start to try to make it go, but they didn't talk to their IT partners, they didn't talk to their risk partners. We can't even really stand this up. This can't live in our environment. We're about 2 years out from even being able to support this, but you don't know this because you didn't have a conversation with us. So now you have a purchase that really is being used at its basic levels because it can't be fully integrated into the technology ecosystem because the business side made the decision. Likewise, flip to the technology side. Shiny new toy. I went to a conference. Oh my gosh, this is so great. We have to get this. This is wonderful. We get it. We implement. We have no use cases because we didn't talk to the business. We don't know if we even purchased the right platform, LLM enabled, whatever. We don't know if we purchased the right thing for what we need to use it for in our context. So again, you have maladoption because the user's like, I don't even know what I'm using this for. It's not solving the problem that I'm trying to solve. And on the flip side, let's say you have everybody at the table. and they have the coalition, and everybody has a conversation, and everybody is shaking their heads. I think the biggest challenge to adoption is the lack of investment in a team that's going to support this and have sustainability for the capability within your organization. AI absolutely needs to have its own subset of organization. You can't ask people who have other day jobs to do this. You can't borrow data people from another project, and you can't borrow developers from another project. It absolutely has to be a focused area, and that's where I see people making a mistake.
What about the actual hands on the keyboard implementation? So how much of that relies on IT? And the reason why I say that is because maybe they have to set up the cloud environment, maybe have to pick and choose the models, although a lot of that might be done by a compliance team that does model risk management and such. But they would design like the AI agent frameworks and maybe create the vector databases and such, versus like I would say like the business getting involved because they know the set of rules or set of decisions that need to get made. They actually know how to do the actual work that's involved, and of course, like that injection of domain expertise is really critical because even if you know the technology and you can do the setup, you don't know how to do the prompting or how to do the setup of the different workflow steps that are involved in a more complex process. So I'm curious, how much coordination is there? Because we talked to a lot of organizations where the IT and the business side they sit quite a bit apart, right? Not just geographically, but even headspace wise. There's not like a history of deep collaboration. Maybe because like the IT team has just been newly created. Maybe it's an AI team that's just been newly formed, and the business doesn't normally work with IT in that capacity. Only now, like they're being prompted to, and so how to collaborate and play as a team ends up being kind of a major challenge initially that has to be overcome in order for them to actually go and set up the AI to actually work well for both parties.
Yes, you're seeing that a lot. And so, again, I mentioned earlier that I've been in this field for a while, and you're seeing a shift in early on when I started, technology partners were very much focused on technology itself. What are the capabilities? How does it work? Does it work? That's it. They really weren't focused on the business. And so, as you're seeing technology continue to mature within organizations, and most organizations, if not all, being technology enabled organizations, you're seeing that the leadership hasn't always pivoted to having the same level of business savvy as their business partners, which I think is much needed now. I think to be an impactful technology leader from 2025 forward, you're going to have an equal understanding of what industry you're in, number one, what business you're in, and what core values your business has in terms of what they're trying to solve for society and the technology. So there's three things that leaders need to understand, and we're seeing a lot of leaders don't have that. So because they don't have that, they're unable to relate well with their business partners. They are still coming across as we're doing this because it's technology and because we have to, which is not the way to approach people. The way to approach your business partners in this day and age is, what problem are you trying to solve so we can figure out the right technology to help you solve it? How do we help the company make money? How do we help the company save money? These are the conversations that technology leaders need to have, instead of we need X, KPI, Y KPI. The business doesn't understand it nor care about it. And that's why I think you have this perpetual silo, and that's critical in a time where we need to come together. AI is absolutely not a technology capability. It's technology driven, and technology is creates it, but AI in organization is absolutely a business IT partnership.
Yep. Yeah, and it's so critical because there's some depth that you need in both in order for this to be successful. And it's a rare instance where you do need that tight collaboration, right? So I absolutely agree. When it comes to use cases, you mentioned that internal use cases, so customer facing ones are a little bit more sensitive due to hallucinations and it's hard to negotiate with the customer what the experience should be, and they might have X expectation and you deliver Y, and it could be pretty damaging. Whereas the internal company enablement, internal employee enablement is quite like ready to go and tackle. I'm curious, where within banking and insurance are you seeing the greatest use cases? So is it front office, middle back office? I'm curious, like what are the maybe even tangible workflows where you see more often attempts being made versus not?
One would think that back office would be where you would find most of the AI capabilities now, but I think I'm seeing a lot more in the front office. And the reason why is the back office has been is it's so tightly wound up that you first have to unravel what the workflows would be before you can enable them with an AI. So I don't think that has happened yet. Although I do think when it comes to internal, that happens to be the space with the greatest opportunity in the back office. We just haven't gotten there yet. So, front office, you're seeing a lot of use cases relating to environmental scanning and information gathering. For example, in banking, you may have private wealth. The private wealth leaders have to scour the market every day, look at the trends, and use that to advise their clients. Well, you're seeing AI that's doing the market scanning for them and providing them with synopsis so that they can, again, be human and better work to service the needs of their families that they're dealing with. So you're seeing that in banking. In insurance, you are seeing some foray into claims where you're having a lot of co-pilots that are doing a very rudimentary job of looking at notes that are created across the board. So almost in the vein of what I shared before with being able to synchronize and aggregate conversations from across. So you're seeing a little bit of that, but the challenge is that some of the foundational data is not available across an organization. So you have limitations to what your AI can pick up because it's not your foundational data is not sharing the data across organization for customer 360, for example. So you might only have that in one claim, like homeowner claim. You can't look at homeowner plus pets, for example, or homeowner plus auto. So in the LA wildfire example, maybe my car, my house burned, and I call it, and the AI is able to help the representative keep track of the conversations I had about my home, but not about my auto. But it's, we're making progress. So those are the things that I'm seeing a lot of just environmental scanning and banking, front office work, definitely.
Yeah, so it seems like I think part of it is helping those operators get information more quickly, right? So pulling information out, summarizing, just basically searching for information that they might need, and so it's assistive to them as they do this information gathering, which I think is a incredible enablement that you're starting to see. Um, it's operationally simpler in some ways because like you have a set of docs or set of queries that you need to go and run, and you could do that, and then the human operator picks it up and then as a better like starting point than they would otherwise, right? So it's almost like you would think it would be more complex, but it's actually simpler. Whereas the back office work is very regimented, a lot of different systems that need to be taken into consideration. It's more painstakingly involved and challenging. And then you'll also want there to be much higher quality of outcomes, right? So you can't have those things fail. Like for example, billing, you don't want to like bill the wrong amount to the wrong party. And so the stakes are in some ways higher in the back office. Whereas in the front office, like you're just serving as a co-pilot of sorts. You're not trying to go full on replace the front office worker. So it makes sense. The stakes are in some ways lower because you have sufficient human review that's involved there.
Yes, that's correct. And in another space, I'm also seeing it in banking is in fraud detection. So I would call that middle office. You're seeing a lot of AI in fraud detection and just really the detection, not fraud alleviation or doing anything to rectify the fraud, but just being able to better detect and make our front office workers aware that this is potential fraud and there's some action that needs to be taken on this potential case. So you're seeing a lot in fraud.
I think that's great. It's like you're flagging items that should require more review, right? So fraud is a great one, and then there's a lot of like KYC, KYB, and compliance workflows more broadly that need that. And people miss things, and so I think yeah, software can I think do a better job because it can analyze a lot more data in the same amount of time, right? People have their attention and time strapped, right? And so like not that the aren't good. They are good, but they can process only so much information. And so in some ways, like I think AI is a great enabler in many ways. And people can still do an additional review, but they're reviewing things that are above and beyond what the software does. But the combination, I think, is going to be far better than any single like, human expert doing this type of work. What about personalization, right? That's a topic that comes up often. I know this is now moving a little bit away from internal like employee enablement to maybe more customer facing. But it still feels like 2025. There is not a whole lot of personalization that happens to the degree that you would expect, both in insurance and banking. So I'm curious, how far are we from personalization that is meaningful at scale, and what are the big blockers that are making it so difficult to do?
The huge blocker is that companies have not addressed their underlying data architecture and their data structures. We have gathered so much data on our customers, and we had it there, it's there. But how to aggregate it, get it to the right place, and make sure it has the correct quality, these are the things that companies have neglected in recent years. So if you want to think back to the days of big data, right? That's probably about 10 years ago. Everybody was very excited about, oh, we have the capability to have all this data. And then we got it, right? So everybody has big data. But then now what? And so then it became a woman because who's going to own it? What about governance? What about stewards? And so for a few years, people were invested in that. But then what I started to see across the board was as companies' budgets began to shrink, first of all, the first budget that always gets cut is IT. And I'm always like, okay, if you can do your business without a technology component in 2025, raise your hand because I want to know who you are. It's probably going to be no hand raised. But so the point is, it's a different podcast where we should be talking to CEOs and CFOs about why they should not cut technology budgets at first, and technology budget should remain intact. But you're cutting technology budgets. And then within technology, what was starting to get cut first were data efforts because no one was really able to articulate the value of all the data that they had collected. No one was able to do that. So to me, fast forward 3 or 4 years, and everybody's like, oh, AI, and we want to do this, but you stopped your data efforts. Oh, you can't do this yet. Customer personalization, it sounds great. And yes, the AI is totally capable of doing it today. Let me go on record for say that. You can do everything we need to do with personalization today, only if the companies go back and make sure that their data is completely free flowing from end to end, top down, end to end in their organizations. Until they do that, until they go back to data, they won't be able to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I think people forget the lifeblood of all of this is really, really great data. And I think that now is not the time to underinvest. I get why companies come to that conclusion is for years they invested massive sums in getting their data in order, and maybe there were some good outcomes, but in some ways might have been underwhelming. What they got were VI dashboards, maybe some better reporting. It helped. In some cases, it might have helped a lot, but in a lot of cases, it might have been a marginal benefit. But now with I think you could do so much more data because AI is an incredible application that sits on top of high quality data to deliver things like personalization at scale, and it powers new, novel, incredibly powerful customer experiences. And that's like we're looking down the pipe at that becoming a very real, tangible ROI, like huge value add here. But at the same time, people are cutting back on their data budget and data teams, and so yeah, it's like it's in some ways you're running in the wrong direction. I'm hoping that we start stemming the tide there, but I do fear the same things that you do around basically under investing in data at a time when this is absolutely the right time to be doubling down there.
Yeah, I think what we need to get across to our business leaders is that data and AI are coupled. If you're invested in AI, you're investing in data. It can't be AI without data. You have to do both, at least on the onset of your AI journey, right? And maybe you can cut back on your data investment once your data is to a place that enables the insights and the outputs that you're looking for from your AI efforts. But at the beginning, on the onset, you absolutely have to have a great data investment. And I love you made me chuckle in my head as you took me back to the BI and dashboarding world. And in my mind, I just thought BI crawled so that AI could walk.
That's a good one. Now I got to borrow that. That's right. That's right. That's absolutely right. So maybe kind of turning to data privacy, right? Because that's very top of mind on the topic of data. So, obviously people have moved to the cloud. They're storing data that is somewhat sensitive, in many cases, very sensitive. But now I think that the challenge is AI learned so much, and in some ways, it's very permissive with what happens with the data, right? Like you could imagine the wrong data gets in the hands of the wrong internal employee, or if it's an external application, to the wrong customer. Like there's data leakage that you don't want. And so I think companies are rightful to be, they're right in being fearful of data being mishandled or misused given the scale that AI has in terms of how it uses that data. I'm curious what you're seeing companies do to go and make sure that the data privacy concerns that they have are addressed pretty well.
I'm seeing a lot of companies doubling down on data governance and ensuring that you really go back and revisit permissions and who first of all ownership and permissions. Who owns what? Lock that down to whoever is, needs to have access to it as well. So again, going back to the foundations, and it's not going to be a magic cure at the top. I think going back into the infrastructure architecture and just how you're governing your data, we're seeing a lot of people really getting into data governance again.
Makes a lot of sense that that would be kind of a focal point. And then you have the whole model risk management, right? That's becoming an entire field in itself of which models are permissioned for use versus not. So I think that's absolutely right. I think maybe to close out some of the conversations here, is there in one like success story that comes to mind when you think about AI adoption that you'd like to share with the audience, more to go and inspire, maybe educate around what's possible when done well, when AI is adopted well here?
So at the moment, I have too many to recall just one, which is I think is a good thing. But what I would say that I'm seeing more of is more innovative uses of AI that's being developed. I'm seeing a lot more specifics that are coming that excite me more than anything. So the first examples I have are more co-pilot like, productivity like, seeing a lot more agentic, which is great. But I'm also seeing some that are specific to banking, specific to insurance. And I think that AI developers are realizing that you're more effective if you can focus on one industry or one section of the industry or one pain point versus trying to solve for everything. And that's what excites me so much because I think that's what's really going to get us past the regulators. I think once the regulators have a good feel for what AI can do, they will ease up on what we're able to do with it. And I think by, again, having these sort of point solutions will help. So I'm seeing a lot of them come out, specifically one around fraud. I was just talking to another one that was dealing with data classification and data management there. Like that's what they did. So if your company doesn't want to go back, we talked about you need to invest in data and they don't have the team to do it. I was just on with this startup that's just working on we will go in and we will classify your data for you. And it's an AI, so it will learn as it goes. And so as new data is coming in, it kind of auto classifies. Right? That excites me because I think these little point solutions are going to help create the building blocks that will allow our use cases to be more impactful to our bottom line. I want us always to remember that we're looking for impact to our bottom line and top line, not just productivity.
No, I think that's incredible, and I appreciate you sharing that with the audience. Well, Tanja, it's been incredible having you on the show. For our audience, I would love to learn more about you as well as Associated Bank. Where could they turn to for more information?
Yes. So about the bank, you can visit at www.associatedbank.com. And for me, I'm always looking to connect with new people on LinkedIn. So just Tonjia Coverdale, just like it appears on the screen on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only one.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.